Tuesday. This is Trekland HQ, and we are live. That NASA, Starfleet, Star Trek reality love. Yes, episode 304 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek Larry Nemechek, coming at you right here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and Trekland Treks and everything else for some clarity, sanity, and the big picture in everything Star Trek. Hey, welcome back, everybody, for another Tuesday here visit. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're having a good week. It's certainly a great week in Trek world, in Trekland also. Some breaking news today. I've got my topic today, and it's great to see everybody back with us. If you are new to Trekland Tuesdays Live, first off, you'll see the chat room going. Jump in, introduce yourself. We've got a great community of TTLers. Say where you are from, because they're from all over the world. Just remember that if you're on YouTube and Twitch, you're seeing everything. If you're on Facebook, you're only seeing the Facebook comments. So some conversations, may stray a little bit. I'm going to be jumping in here talking about my topic and maybe even one or two more. And I keep forgetting to say it, but I also have an unboxing to do today, and it'll be live. So it's a busy day today. This topic and some breaking news, but we'll do all of that. Then I'll take a short break. We will look at the Parrot analytics and whoever knows what other streaming ratings coming down the pike real quick. And then I will get to your chat. All right. So I'm not ignoring the chat. I'm going to jump into it. We will do a reset. And believe me, the veterans will tell you we get to everything. I love questions, actual questions, but I know everybody has to check the weather and the language situation and everybody's vacation plans. I'm happy to provide the forum. But if you're watching us later on the archive YouTube, hey, I wish you could join us live sometime like this bunch is about to do. But let me dumb into this. First off, we have the breaking news. We got the breaking news. Can you see this? As I was intimating earlier, Michelle Yeoh, Section 31 show announced as a special movie event. Don't you love TV marketing? As we were saying, it turns out through my sources that Michelle Yeoh's schedule window was only this fall for the next few years. She had no spare time to do a Section 31 because her movie card dance is filled up. Movie dance card is filled up. Thanks to that Oscar, but thanks to her career being busy even before she won the Oscar. She was an Oscar nominee for several months before she was an Oscar winner. And she's just an awesome person, and her brand is just on a peak right now. So this makes all the sense in the world. Now, does Section 31 begin and end as a TV movie event? In the old days, it would have been a TV movie of the week. These days, they're throwing enough budget at it that could easily be shown in theaters, I'm thinking, as a standalone movie. But is it an end to itself? Is it the introduction to a series? Is this even something we haven't had since Where No Man Has Gone Before? Is this actually a pilot that needs to sell the series here in the wake of the retrenching that all the streamers are doing, that Paramount Plus is tightening its belt a little bit? Are they actually going to have to see the result? Now, there were probably contracts in play to have her do something with Section 31. This may be that. I'm totally speculating here, but I can see this playing out as one of two or three happy results. At the very least, they get Michelle Yeoh playing Georgiou as promised all along in a Section 31 format. And then it's a standalone, or maybe if it's big enough, they make a series out of it, or they tweak in the movie and make changes going in. It's just a lot. Nothing is a huge rollout in the old days, in the Berman era, or as we've seen so far. That could be the reason for this announcement. It could be a totally one-off project with no hope of going forward. The thinking could have changed so much around it with fast-moving currents, which is interesting for what that means for hashtag Terry Trek and hashtag Star Trek Legacy. I don't know. Does that clear the decks? If it doesn't, so many questions. We will find out the answers soon. But just some things to chew on. I haven't. We've been so busy here in the cave dealing with the Picard situation that, and life, that the long term there hasn't popped up yet. But it's going to be an interesting, exciting, crazy year. Um, it's already been that, though. It's already been that. Speaking of Picard, that gets me to the topic today, that NASA, Starfleet, Star Trek Reality Love. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned it last week, but we just had a successful Yuri's night here. And Yuri's night is a 10-year-old. It's just now getting on the radar of a lot of folks, long range scans. But Yuri's night is a global event that's marking humanity's first contact with space, basically, when Yuri Gagarin, the Soviet cosmonaut, made his flight April 17th, I believe. No, April 12th. April 12th, 1961. And so the last 10 years or so, there's been a celebration started here in LA, spread around the world to mark that. Not so much slavishly just recreating, a cosmonaut's flight that was historic and to the detriment of anything else, but just as that a marker to celebrate our future in space, our future based on science, excitement, futurism, not just space travel, but the technologies that are being unleashed for the good. And yes, those that we have to keep an eye on. Almost any new technology has an upside and a downside. Nobody's being Pollyanna here, but it's all of that, plus the excitement, the inspiration of our science fictional worlds have brought us to help all those scientists and engineers and future imaginationers, those who are looking into the future life in space and here on Earth. And it has spread. There were several markers around the Space Coast, Florida, around Cape Canaveral, had theirs on the other weekend, just last weekend. But I was privileged to go down this year. I was privileged to be an invited special guest, not just a name on the list. We've gone a couple of times. This year's was the biggest of all. They're trying to expand the program, the celebration. Yeah, it's a fundraiser for everything down at the California Science Center, especially the new Endeavour space shuttle. This is getting local, but they're building housing a new facility to stack it on its tail as it would be in launch configuration with external tank. It's been down for 10 years now? Yikes. When the shuttles were distributed around the country, the Endeavour came to LA. It was a huge thing of landing at LAX and then bring the special route they prepared. There's a documentary. It's amazing, but it's inspiring too. And letting future generations know this is it right here. That was kind of all in the mix in the Zen zeitgeist for where Yuri's night was coming from, but it's a dance. It's some speakers, celebrities, a lot of booths, a lot of vendors set up in the otherwise museum spaces. It's just a great night for all kinds of mixing of people to do. And this last couple of weekends ago was a great mix for more Star Trek celebs than ever. Shout out to my friend Amy Imhoff for coming on board to set that up. And a ton of real life astronauts and space heroes all getting to say, oh, you're the hero. No, you're the hero. No, you're the hero. And it was interesting timing. It was a huge event, and it was going all over the world. Now, not every site, the Moscow site, the New York, DC site, whatever, the Space Coast site in Florida. We're not all privy to so many celebrities and stars, celebrities in the space and science fields, right? But not so many TV and not so many Star Trek stars. And the Orville cast and crew were there to pick up a special award too. So not every site was privy to looking like it was a con in disguise. But the intention was there. And there were some real life superheroes from in the space world. We wouldn't say in front of the camera and behind the camera. We would say in the cabin and behind the cabin. I don't know. But you know what I mean? Folks on the ground who made it possible, the folks who flew missions, folks who braved the pioneering spirit and the frontier. No, not Frontier Day. And that's what it was all about. And even folks who would never set foot in a space capsule. I mean, they'll never get the chance to. That's not their thing. They're thinking about change in the future right here on Earth. And that's and the inspirations behind it. And making it real. Making it real here, not escaping Earth, that thing about Plan B. No. It's nobody abandoned England just because North America was settled or colonized. I know. Problematic history, but it happened. the originator of the spread doesn't dry up and blow away just because the outreach happened. And that got me to thinking, looking back, it's a past event. It happens. We all know it. I've talked for years about the mutual love affair between NASA and Star Trek. And it wasn't just, visitors coming to Star Trek sets over the years. It goes back to the early days. It goes back to Gene Roddenberry and Jimmy Doohan taking visits out at JPL. It goes back, black and white photos of them visiting and Jimmy Doohan asking questions because he has engineering in his background. It goes back to those great shots. It's a Mariner flight, the first one to land on Mars or crash into Mars, and the NASA guys at consoles in the 60s with their little white shirts and ties and their horn rimmed glasses, wearing Spock ears. It goes back that far. It's always been there. The NASA Star Trek, love connection, mutual love affair, I've always called it. And I personally can vouch for walking through Houston Spacecraft Center and being introduced to people, high and low. 3/4 of them would say, I'm here because of Star Trek. And it's just a phenomenon. It's just a phenomenon. And that's why this season of Picard, to flip this coin, the other side of this has been, people are so, what are we doing? We're shipping all the relationships. People are loving seeing Picard Beverly. People are laughing seeing Worf and Raffi. People are enjoying seeing where the Troy Rikers are going. LeVar and his daughters and his mystery wife mother, whoever she may be. But so much Jack and Beverly, Jack and Sydney. I mean, it's, and Raffi and Seven. We have one more episode to go here about them. But so many, the world and Shaw. R.I.P. spoilers. But there's that, of course, Star Trek is, the zine movement fostered, because of Spock and Vulcans, the zine movement fostered organized fandom and breakaway media fandom from lit fandom that led us to today's Comic-Cons. So you're welcome, Comic-Con world. Thanks, Star Trek. There is all of that. But the other side of the coin was Star Trek, of course, and the futurism and just the concepts and ideas. I have my 5 C's of Star Trek's popularity. Concept, the futuristic, diverse, respectful, egalitarian world with cool tech. But one of the other C's, aside from canon and characters and casting, is commentary. And anyway, I'm my point here is that as much as we love the characters and the fiction and the story, yeah, it's the canon side. Today we say it's world building. Word didn't exist in 1966. Another thing that Star Trek pioneered the name for the need for all these words and names and the need for the internet to get the information out faster than paper and stamps. Nothing had been seen like it before. And of course, things like flip phones and iPads, inspiring people to do that. But that is the world. I think of this because there's so much going on. People in marketing offices in New York and LA, they have no idea what my friend Dave Blass is doing with that art, getting the original art team back. Mike and Denise Akuda and Doug Drexler and Jeff Mandel and the whole video team, a lot of them. Who am I leaving out here? Alan Kobayashi. There's so many of those folks. I'm mad because I'm leaving people out. Monica Fedrick. There's so many people who the fandom looks at as art gods, but it's the world building. It's that continuity. It's that we know we're home. It's that groundedness. And of course, the sidebar here is, all the ship porn, all the tech heads, and we love them. I make fun of them. In a simpler time, I was right there with you tracking the Okudograms before anybody was doing my frame grabs in the 90s and trying to track the classes and the ships and the numbers and seeing the genius that Mike was bringing to that, all that subversive continuity that he wasn't getting paid for. that he was just trying to keep a handle, do a little better than the original series had done with awareness on, they did as so many fronts, from tracking room numbers on doors in the Enterprise, in the D, having a system for it. Everything, the roots of our stellar cartography layout, just basically the quadrant system, eventually when a script called for it, coming up with that. So everything that sprung from that increasingly over the years gave us the world of Gene Roddenberry, the 24th century. And I'm laughing at that because of all the love Dave Blass is cranking out these ships. And of course, now we've married Star Trek Online and even Star Trek Adventures. And people, a minority, but a big chunk of fandom, are just creaming their pants over the ship tech. And the fact that someone took this much attention to it, and whether or not it was the attention paid to getting it on camera, the backfill, the graphic wall that we just had in episode 9 Vox was enough to keep you going for days. We've come so far since the net at the Romulan neutral zone during the Klingon Civil. I remember having 12 or 15 ships and trying to frame grab that and then do it on my forehead so I could read everything without writing to Mike Okuda, who I barely knew then, but getting all the ships and NCC registry numbers, because someone took the time to do that. And it was a mix of ships we'd heard of and ships we hadn't. It goes back to there. Mary Sue Starship on the wall above the Commodore's office on the Starbase that Greg Jean famously sat down in the 60s, early 70s and tried to match NCC numbers to, that was Matt Jeffries as a one-man art department doing graphics as well as blueprint. It's amazing to me what stone knives and bearskins they had to work with in the 60s, and gave the inspiration for all of this that today is blossoming with Dave and Liz Kloskowski showing off the video. I had to repost it too. It's in my Instagram stream. Hey, follow me on Instagram if you haven't. But just that wall of ships and numbers made so many people happy. And there's homages in there, of course, and some real world science and some real history in it that's cool to where it's almost like little miniature Google Doodles. You can learn a little bit about people. Check out, as I said in Second Opinion, check out the USS Ross. But you sit back and you look at that, and yeah, there's lots of tech love in Star Wars, and you can get droid maintenance manuals, and you can get X-wing fighter, and that's cool. That's part of Star Wars' longevity. But nothing matches the depth that's there and the depth of love for it that's in the world building on the tech side, and specifically the ships. The ships of the line calendar that's now in its 20th year, 21st, 22nd year, that Doug oversees for the vast majority of that. And it's not a contest between the franchises. This is what's uniquely Star Trek. And as I sat here as the days go by, and I laugh with, I smile at so much. When the tech heads get off on whether or not the Odyssey class has enough phaser banks to keep up with its needs and how many, I'm not there in the weeds anymore, but I've been there over the years. Hey, I was the first one to talk to Alice Yeager about the 4 CGI ships. I got those details out in the companion chapter way before they were out there anywhere else. And of course, this is pre-Memory Alpha and pre-internet. So guys, I've been there tracking as much of this shit as I could. And I say that lovingly. As much of the anal detail is out there. I put a ton of my life into trying to do it, as much as with planets and stars, the ships. But it's just, now it's just gone. And now that it's such an industrialized thing that's gamified for the needs of, say, Star Trek Online, even Star Trek Adventures, for Ben Robinson and the ships collection and all the detail and data that's in there. We have this whole community, and I'm just smiling because I'm thinking how many of that in that circle in the Venn diagram of the ship love community, the ship nerds, how much of that overlaps the Venn diagram for Yuri's Night, and this amazing mix of the real and the fictional, but smartly fictional. We talk about this all the time, but it just struck me how this is two ends the same tunnel, two ends the same candle, burning bright. I don't know. It's two sides of the coin, but what it's all about, the mutual love affair of NASA and Star Trek, and the devotion. Gene started Star Trek to make commentary on the human condition, and by God, he's done that. And everyone who's taken up the mantle since then has done that. And if you're sitting back wondering, gosh, as excited as we are for everything about Picard, for all the member berries and nostalgia porn folks out there talking about this season of Picard, totally apart from the shippornistas, totally apart, like, is there any there to this season? I want to see, and I've got my screener. I haven't seen it yet, so just shoot me. I want to see what's the philosophical core of this season. Once you take away, the reunion aspect, once you take away all the ship love, what is this season going to be remembered for? I have a suspicion. For one thing, the diversity in Starfleet captains is going to be a big field of acceptable, rough around the edges captains who are not all out of the plastic action hero mold. I have a suspicion about that, and I think we saw some of it bubbling up in episode 9. But that's a core thing that a month or 2 or 3 from now, from some of these feels, you'll never separate yourself from the feels, like you'll never separate, if you were there, from the feels of Mr. Warfire, just to name one. But the residual, what everybody who comes along later is going to glean from this season, these 10 chapters of Picard, of Star Trek. That's out there. But apart from that, I'm sitting here looking at the ship love. I'm sitting here looking at the NASA love. And it just reminds me, I say this too, it's what is unique about Star Trek over any other inspirational, fun, cool, adventuresome, geeky franchise that inspires and motivates people to such devotion. It's the groundedness. It's the groundedness in reality, in humanity. Yeah, it's future projected science. And yes, as they said, even back in the 60s, our Star Trek characters are not really the way people live in the 23rd and 24th and now 25th centuries, or even in the 32nd century. Star Trek is still a reflection of us. If we could, if we go back 500 years, how did people, medieval times, Shakespearean times, Elizabethan times, the Asian cultures, day-to-day life for people, now the academics are madly trying to grab onto that and differentiate the centuries between us. Language is a key. The artifacts and art and culture is a key that we can find relics of, much less written records. We know that projecting forward, the humanity that we see and our humanity interaction with aliens and bipedal bumpy heads, different colors. I mean, the whole, the humanoid figure, unless we have enough budget to throw some 10C out there at us. Thank you, Discovery. We know that this is a projection of us in the future. And for all the future forward projecting science, things we can't predict. We couldn't predict. You watch a movie from the 90s now, and who can predict? We were watching War Games the other day and just thinking what a difference, not just more advanced computers, but just cell phones. Just the availability of not just tech and communication, but databases and mapping, what that's doing and how it's changing us, our brains, much less our culture. So no one's sitting here saying that Star Trek is what it's going to be like 300, 400, 500 years from now, or 800 years from now. But it's a grounded world. It's a unique world, and it does relate back to us. And that is why both of these segments that have crossed my desk recently, the NASA Star Trek mutual love affair, and just enjoying the hell out of watching Starship World enjoy itself, and think, there's a mutual connection here. There's a mutual reason, and it's what not only is Star Trek, but it's what makes Star Trek unique from any other franchise out there. And as I always say, not that it's a contest, but there is just nothing like Star Trek out there. It's not a fight me thing. It's just fact. I'd love to hear some counter facts, but I've grappled with this over the years. I haven't been a big what's the secret of Star Trek's success over 50 years. I don't dwell on that, but sometimes it comes around and slaps you in the face and you have to think about it. And I don't know if that's occurred to you. It warms my heart to see so many aspects to Star Trek fandom that was recognized in the beginning. But this is a unified story that even if the commentary track isn't your thing, even if shipping isn't your thing, number one, even if the tech side isn't your thing, even if the great writing and acting and casting and the production value of what people are able to wring out of smaller than they ought to have budgets, much less time. There's the TV production aspect. And yeah, there's the canon and continuity and all of that to keep up. I mean, there's so many fandom strings to Star Trek, and they all, in the best Star Treks, they all get wrapped up together. And even if it's not your favorite thread in Star Trek, you appreciate it. And maybe you don't even consciously appreciate it. And you should. I know I have been guilty of that at times. I took Star Trek for granted in some ways. Anyway, I don't know if this has struck a chord with anyone today. Anybody watching later gets you thinking. There's no good or bad. We have lots of delightful, total flights of fancy, goofy. In fact, there's a whole world of fantasy that tries to break away from as much as it can, right? I mean, we have fantasy aspects that have nothing to do with our real world. But for those who enjoy the projection forward, even to history and historical parallels and cycles and allegories, there's nothing like Star Trek. So enjoy this peak Picard time. We will see what the future brings. But just look around at times when you're enjoying yourself, you're so immersed, realize what this franchise and what this series, this season is doing for folks. And sure, maybe you're a follower, maybe you're a NASA kid like I was, and maybe you could care less about the hard sciences. But you appreciate what Star Trek, the little taste Star Trek is giving you. It's all cool. It's all cool. As I say on Second Opinion, it's just something I wanted to say. All right. I can't wait to get in the chat and see if I stirred anything up. I can't wait to get in the chat and see if I've got any actual questions this week. But, before I go any further, I, of course, want to thank all of our Patreon folk in our TTL club, Trekland Tuesdays Live Club. So thank you, Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Galinda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Ryan, and Andrew Jasimski, and our TTL. The card's getting so crowded these days. Our TTL, I know. I say no more. Be careful what I wish for, Lieutenant. I might get it. Our live wires: Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Halbert Gunn Johnson, Alan Hohensey, Dave Gregory, Tobias Rex, Donna S. Runyon, and Casey Shafsky. I would really be honored if, in my small way, you're in a small way, if you could help us out here with the live stream aspects of everything Trekland. It's a $5 or $10 level. Very simple at patreon.com/TreklandLive. Love you doing that for a shout out. And probably that time that I threw a few more bio shrimps on the Barbie there for the $10 folk, for the live wires. Our first few generations of Portal 47. See these folks back here? This is like a fraction of the Portal 47 backstage guests we've had over the years. That's what the $10 folk get. Should I have a higher level Patreon? I always say just jump into Portal 47. Want to make it accessible to everybody and allow you to help, and I do appreciate that, as always. This week, a new episode of the Trek Files is up too. I want to make sure you know about it. It's Jonathan Frakes. We make a little Star Trek history, I think. It's such a cool moment. It wasn't even planned. It just happened. And then I have a lot. Hope you don't understand. We went a little overtime with Jonathan. It's close to maybe half an hour, 25 minutes this week. But it's a great conversation and some fun stuff. And maybe, I think, hopefully, even some bits he was surprised to think about. So hopefully, again, not the same old, same old. Jonathan Frakes, second visit with us on the Trek Files, wherever fine podcasts are caught, podcast.roddenberry.com. The documents, which you want to see, of course, are at our hub on Facebook at the Trek Files. You want to see that. And hey, it's April. You're thinking about spring and summer and fall. And we're hoping, although it's still out there, but I'm hoping we're unclenching from the pandemic. So if you're coming to LA, if you're thinking you might, I just want to throw this out there. You might want to spend a day with your own real life away mission and take a Trekland Treks with me. I will help you set it up. You get in touch with me. We'll work out the day, the details, weekend, weekday. I'll guide you. We'll go to 4 sites. We'll have a fast food lunch. I will be your prop wrangler. I'll be your cosplay photographer. Whatever you want to do, we'll work it out. Your interest. There's over 40 places. Thank you, Picard Season 2. There's over 40 places around greater LA that we can choose from. We'll go to 2 big ones, 2 little ones. Treklandtreks.com. Check it out. Maybe put that on your radar. And nothing to stop you from doing a couple of days. Don't let me do that. We have special days ahead of time like we just did with the cruise folks. But Trekland Treks is available to everyone all day long. And just to say that, we have rebooked this. I've got to get the new cards up. But next July in 2024, we're also reoffering with Geek Nation Tours, exploring Trek. This is a 10-day LA and San Francisco tour. So just put that on your radar. Yes, it's a big ticket. It's 10 days. It's its own event. No tie into a convention. If you're interested, or if you know someone who is, get in touch with me. We'll be talking more and more about that as it comes up because we've got over a year to go. That's another experience that nobody thought about a few years ago. Hey, gang, thanks so much for joining us again. I think that's pretty much it. Just, I'm always there on Twitter at LarryNemechek.com. YouTube, where you are now, please like and subscribe. Hey, you can subscribe on Twitter, too. It's my biggest platform, but we've had a couple of tweets lately that were huge. It's been a lot of fun. We've had engagement like nowhere before. Thank you, Picard. But, Facebook, Instagram especially, and YouTube. Please like us and follow us. And I said, if you're really curious about what we do all year long, the mini-con all year long, portal47.net, check that out. You might want to jump in with the Portales as well. That's going to do it for now. If you're leaving us on YouTube right now, maybe you can join us live sometime. If you are live, hang on. We're going to take a short break and be right back. But no, we're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And I'd love to see you back here sometime and jumping in the chat and taking part. Piece of real space news I forgot to mention just now. The SpaceX, I know, problematical owner these days, but SpaceX itself, for all the people that work there and have worked so hard and done so many amazing things, the SpaceX Starship heavy stack booster with capsule attached, unmanned, was supposed to launch Monday night. It's been reset to an hour window, Thursday morning, 9:30 to 10:30 Eastern, 6:30 to 7:30 Pacific. So we're all fingers crossed for that. They had a fueling issue last night, had to postpone for a few days. Just, again, to reflect the real space, fake space nature of Star Trek and everything we do. So good luck to everybody at SpaceX with that launch on Thursday. Meanwhile, I'm out of here for now. Hope you can join us live sometime if you're not already with us live. Second Opinion comes out every Saturday. I hope you can join it. It's a shorty. It's YouTube. My thoughts on the passing Trek episode of the week or whatever the news is in a short form, very targeted. No chat, just me. But I'd love you to respond. There's one for every season, every episode of Picard this year. You've been following along. I wish you would. But that is it. I'm just going to say, gang, please, please, please. I mentioned it before, but the COVID is out there. I still hear of at least 1 or 2 people a week. Hopefully everybody is boosted and vaxxed and it's a more annoyance, but contagions are there. We're going to be learning to live with it. So, just do all the things. It is annoying if you come down now, thankfully, not scary, just annoying. You have done all the things, right? Then it shouldn't be scary. But yeah, do that and stay woke. Check your sources. A lot of weird shit going out there flying by. And trek well. Oof, okay. Real quick. The Parrot Analytics, et cetera report I want to look at. There's been a lot of talk. It's like suddenly the world has discovered Nielsen ratings. And I mean, we've been talking about them ever since 2017. Once again, I've been here for years. Zooming. The Portales can tell you. Once again, we can look at our Parrot analytics. So for 5-6 years, the idea that the Nielsen's, the old school Nielsen's for broadcast, for terrestrial linear programming, didn't work with streaming. Obviously, there's no commercials, so you can't set ad rates, so there's no commercials to buy. But that also takes away the lever that people judge popularity, right? So one company, anyway, Parrot, came up with this idea just to measure the internet popularity buzz. Now, I think that always skews against older audiences and older focused shows because, generational divide about using the internet to begin with. But they've got algorithms and what have you, metrics to maybe counter that, and also use as much real material because these streamers don't release their numbers right now. We're pecking away at it. And one of these platforms, Flix Patrol, is looking at actual numbers from streamers. But just because we've done this apples to apples for so many years, I'm just going to say real quick that really, gang, really, come on. Boom. There we go. Parrot Analytics, we've been following apples to apples since 2017. They're measuring digitals with what they call their average demand expression. They put out the weekly numbers in countries all over the world. The Americans are there that we follow. And anyone can at their site under the Insights tab. What's happened lately is that, well, I'll tell you, the latest numbers we have are April 7th that they're posting. They used to keep this up to date. They're selling the most recent numbers off for others to cite. But you know what? As of April 7th, and you've been hearing a lot about ratings and all that in the news, there's a little bit of apples and oranges going on there. But just so you know, in our old school here, Picard was number 4 the week ending April 7th. Stranger Things was in that 64.6 times more popular than an average show. That was the factor. Mandalorian was right behind it at 63.4. Then Ted Lasso at 48, and then Star Trek Picard at 45. And then a big jump down to Shadow and Bone at 39. So now that means that Picard there a week ago was, yes, in the exceptional range, in the upper 0.4%. Picard's doing phenomenal by whatever metric, and it's starting to soak in. We're going to have 6 weeks of no fresh Trek, 6 or 7 weeks of no fresh Trek. We're going to have a chance to, on Tuesdays Live, to get into some of these bigger picture aspects. That's when I want to jump into. What is shifting rent, and also take a gauge and take a barometer. What's going on? How much of a cutback is going on? Discovery is ending with its big overhead, cheaper, faster, leaner, meaner ways of producing Star Trek. I wish they'd discover one to do it, to make it in LA that way, but probably not happening. So yeah, Picard's number 4 among the streamers only. You look at the overalls, and the other ones are After Shadow and Bone, Night Agent, Problem with Jon Stewart, his huge indictment show, Daisy Jones and the Six, You, and Star Wars The Bad Batch down at number 10. You look at overalls, Where are we in our overalls? Oshkosh bagosh. Stranger Things and Mandalorian, the number 1 and 2, are the only two digitals in the top 10 overall, which is, usually SpongeBob, number 1, and then South Park this week. Then the two digitals are 3 and 4, then The Flash, Saturday Night Live, My Hero Academia, Simpsons, Game of Thrones, Attack on Titan. The top 10 ends up at 52 times more popular, right? Than the next, because the next couple. So Picard is in the top 20, maybe, overalls, which is phenomenal. What you've been hearing lately, for one thing, the latest parrots are on a site. TV Geek apparently is paying for that honor. They're showing Picard's peak demand. I never can resolve this with the weekly scores. They're showing it at 50, which is above where we were at the 45. They're showing 50. They're showing a 60% upswing curve line is what's kind of amazing here. Yeah, the demand rank. Here's just this there. See this upswing demand curve? That's day by day. That was the worldwide. I should say. Really? That's the world. Oh yeah, that's the worldwide curve. You may be hearing a lot of talk recently about from another site, number 1, Flix Patrol. Flix Patrol showed on tax day, on April 15th, Picard was the number 1 show on Amazon Prime on April 15th. It's been in the top 5, certainly the top 10 for the last 2 months, but it's actually been number 1 once or twice. It's been number 2 once or twice. And on the 15th, on a Saturday, it was 18th. Yeah. So people had time to watch, sit at home, and they did and catch up. Now, I just did a Flix Patrol. I could look on the top TV shows for the world today. Now, this is reflecting yesterday, but dated today for the 17th, Picard is number 4. It's in 65 countries. Mrs. Maisel is in 94 countries, which I love, and it's number 1 right now because it's hot and new. But Picard is hanging in there at number 4 on the Flix Patrol worldwide. What's amazing is for the U.S. Amazon Prime. Now, again, outside the U.S., that's how most of the world is viewing it. But in the U.S., it's not in the top 10. But that's because people in the U.S. are getting it on Paramount Plus. And then you see recent news stories, and Terry Metalis retweeted this, that Picard was in the top 10 for the Nielsen's streaming. And so Nielsen keeps hacking away. They had a huge issue a couple of years ago during the pandemic and had to admit some of their systems were flawed and correcting numbers, and they've still had problems. But it was a big splash. It was the first time, not the first time for a Paramount Plus movie show, but the first time a Star Trek was in the top 10. You may have seen that. That made a lot of mainstream. That made the trade papers. So, we've been following this in one way, one channel of measuring, which has never been actual eyeballs. Nielsen's relies on people, journaling with the little handheld wands. It's got its limitations. I think we're going to get into this at a future TTL during hiatus. But for now, the bottom line here is Picard is just shit tons popular in the US and around the world. And that's a good thing. And what does that mean for hashtag Terry Trek and hashtag Star Trek Legacy? Will that be too big for Paramount Plus to ignore, even with the plans in the future? Between Michelle Yeoh and the demand for Star Trek Legacy, has that shifted thinking? 2 months ago, I would have thought no. Now, we'll see. Pour it on, gang. Pour it on. Just leave your Paramount Plus on all day long. And with that bundle of fuzzy but impressive numbers, I'm going to back scroll. So, Christoph, you can set the marker. And let's see how everybody's doing. Let us see what's headed on here. Yes, Glenn? Is this your chat way of yelling first? Is that what that is? Okay. Hey, Christoph, are you in the wrong show? Because we haven't done Life Support Live in a while, but it's fine. It's good to see Samini going on here. Yes. I am. I'm looking for questions. It's good to see everybody here. You will not. Yes, when have I ever ignored you? My goodness. You're unignorable. Oh, the lurkers. See, it's funny because when I sign on, there's always I always make sure. Sometimes it goes as long as 15 or 20 seconds before the chat starts popping in here in master control. So I'm glad if you're there a little early. It's fine. Because who knows? Who knows? And all the Facebookers. There we go. Okay, Christoph. Yay. Let's see. You're disappointed it's a movie unless it manages to include William Sadler as Slump. Well, now, Glenn, let's remember, no one's calling it a movie. They're calling it a special, what is it? A special television event? Is that what it was? Oh, shoot. I didn't, damn it. I didn't keep it going here. Anyway, I think it's a special television event. What got me was, I meant to say this earlier, but it was breaking news, so I didn't. What's funny about this is, here we go. Yes, it's a special movie event. Excuse me. What's funny is if you read the press release for this, we have to get through all the obligatory blurbs. Come on, read now. What the hell did Marco Polo think? There we go. You read through the blurb, the announcement for this fall. You have to have the obligatory quote paragraph from Michelle Yeoh, okay, who's an executive producer, of course. Then you have to have the paragraph blurb from Alex Kurtzman. Then you have to have the paragraph blurb from Dominic DiMeglio, the chief marketing officer and head of data at Paramount Streaming. Okay. Then you have the paragraph from David Staff, the president of CBS Studios. And only then do you find out who's the hands-on with it. It's Craig Sweeney, who was a producer the first season of Discovery and probably had a big hand in developing her character then. It's going to be directed by Tunde Olatunde Osunsanmi, who was the overseeing director-producer for Discovery all of its years, who's already gone on to the project, but is coming back to direct this, Star Trek Section 31. So Craig Sweeney's in the big, long executive producer list, all the normal, and so is Tunde, all the usual suspects here, including Michelle Yeoh. I love how you get through all the obligatory network and bigwig star graphs, and then they think to mention the writer and director down below. So it's going to be curious to see whether that's an ongoing format. It might not just be a movie, is my point, Glenn. It may be totally a thing about and if it goes on, I'm doubting that Michelle Yeoh will be involved. So this is the movie that's a movie standalone. It takes advantage of her star power and drawability. It fulfills the idea all these years of a Michelle Yeoh Section 31 show in a handoff. It's not a backdoor pilot. It would have been a backdoor pilot if it went directly from her walk through the Guardian of Forever. Let's see. Okay. We're so global. We've got everybody from Australia and the UK and Germany here. Thank you, Doralta. Yes, Scott, you're just happy they're making a made-for-streaming TV Trek movie, no matter the subject matter. This is where Trek movies should be, where they don't have to hopelessly compete with Marvel. Well, that's true, but I don't want them to play chicken forever. I think they can do this, and they can. I think there's so much rebuilding that needs to happen. Massifying, broadening of the Star Trek audience. It had gotten so, I don't want to say shriveled, but it had gotten so diminished over the years that we need another few years of this, and we need some more trend lines like that Picard trend line going up, up, up. And part of this is just the chaos of the market and the technology, and this is this thing about the ratings and the Nielsen's and Paradigm. I mean, all of that is reflecting the chaos in how we get our content and view it, and how it's paid for, and how we paid for it. There's just a lot of chaos. Things were so settled with a few disruptions. Movies were there, and then TV disrupted movies, and then they found out the new equilibrium. Movie studios just bought themselves a TV studio, profited both ways. And then cable came along, and streaming, and pushed. We have cinematic TV now, and the line between TV. It's a whole socio-cultural, financial phenomenon that's been happening here. So I don't think Star Trek should totally turn tail and hide from the movie format, although I understand what you're saying. It's the same thing about, is Star Trek ever going to be on a broadcast network again? Is that too shark infested? And is it just happier here being a big fish in a small pond? We'll see. The whole oceanic metaphor may go away if broadcast TV implodes in the meantime. It may be a moot point. The Trek could be a movie version of Mission Impossible. Yes, that's what we've been saying. Or even a Man from U.N.C.L.E., slightly darker, maybe. But as I said before, this thing about having a 2-hour movie was in the mix when they first announced Star Trek's return and CBS All Access. And Short Treks was kind of a step in that, but Short Treks was really about having a lab theater for experimenting, not because, here's a new format we want to try out. The fact that it didn't adhere to any one thing. And what happened once the diversity of Star Trek became apparent? Short Treks went away. Now we have series to try out new talent, actors, writers, directors, visual effects, creatives, designers, composers. We've got just the series themselves to do that. So there we go. Okay. Good point, Christoph. Will she be everywhere, everything, all at once? She will when she first comes out of the Guardian. So good to see folk. Good to see all of our folks back here. Hey, Dr. Dave, what is this piece of news? ASU's Arizona State's chapter of Students for Exploration and Development of Space, SEDS, held an event last Saturday, April 5th. There you go. That's good to hear, Dr. Dave. I would expect no less. You had a Yuri's night there in Tempe. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm glad to see you jumping on that and being part of the global network. And I'm sure everybody had a great time. Lots of networking and awareness raising was had by all. Hope you had a good public influx just outside, the community circle. Let's see. Hello, Rose. Good to hear you chiming in. Aha. Comment. Doralta is watching the penultimate Picard episode. So it's like the whole world suddenly found that word. It's the next to last. It's like, quick, can you name the penultimate episode in every Star Trek series? Preemptive Strike was TNG. Everybody remembers Game of Thrones. Everybody remembers All Good Things. But what came before? The penultimate episode of DS9 was Sleeping Dogs, was it? No. In the Wind. Tacking into the Wind? It's either Tacking in the Wind or Sleeping Dogs. Watching the penultimate Picard episode And hot damn, again, I remember hating Shaw, and now I'm sad seeing him gone and still hope he'll be back. Okay, spoilers. See, this is the magic of art. This is the magic of writing and acting. We don't have cardboard cutouts, and people are not static. And that's the thing about week to week to week, and that's the thing I think is the powerful thing about releasing week to week. Even though it's the same amount, even though in the future people will just click through at their own speed, and watch their Paramount Plus wall, their Prime wall, Amazon Prime wall. They might binge all 10 in one time, but for the initial impact, what people will carry away, and why it's interesting to go back and binge after you've watched week to week, just to double check your own filter and get some interesting, new perspectives. Much less the passage of time eventually, but you had time to sit with all those emotions and reactions to Shaw, the beginning, him and his blue-green space steak, and dared insulting our heroes. It was a great culture shock there. It was a great audience reaction shot. How dare you? It was a great little checkpoint there to bring you from your years and years and years of Next Generation Picard worship, whether or not you'd watched the first 2 seasons of this show. It was still kind of there, aside from Admiral Clancy, and a very very skeptical, crew that he worked with the closest. Let's see, everybody. I'm going to, yes. Hey, yes, May, it was good to see you there. Yuri's night was so much fun and inspirational. I think we selfied. Yes. Have made-for-TV movies in the U.S. ever got sequels if things were right, or is this an impossible? Oh, no. Oh, Christoph. Well, aside from TV movies, we had miniseries. North and South. And North and South Book 2. Hello, Jonathan Frakes and Kirstie Alley. No. Now, sometimes the sequels, as usual, were not near as good. Roots and Roots 2. The sequels are never as good, if not powerful, as the first. But, no, it's happened. It's happened. Made-for-TV movies. Yeah. That used to be, though, it was like high-end for TV, but low-end for... although... The Wrath of Khan started off being made by the TV division of Paramount to save money after the bloatedness of motion picture. Not all Gene's fault. And then it was elevated. It was quality enough that it was elevated to cinema status, and no one ever thought about it being a TV movie blown up. The way that the Batman movie and the Munsters movie were shot on TV budgets for just longer period of time, with a longer script, and then they look that way on screen. Yeah. Yes, Dave, I copied what you'd said earlier, unwittingly. What are you saying here, Rose? Better than Still Before... Oh. Okay. Good. Linda, you don't know if made-for-streaming movies do better than made-for-network TV. I think, especially these days, they look better. They look like cinematic TV. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm looking for actual... Look, I love the conversation going on here. Oh, hey, yeah. You love all those 70s Trek NASA love connection. But yeah, the rollout of the Enterprise. Come on. Yes. And then having the Star Trek actors there. That was probably the biggest platform edition of that. I mean, the Voyager premiere having Sally Ride, the first American woman in space, there for Kate to give her a comm badge and make her an honorary member of the Voyager's crew. I mean, she was no longer an astronaut by then, but it's always been there. And when astronauts would visit sets and they want to see the bridge, but then they want to go over to engineering and see the warp core going in the TNG days. The Spock ears picture now, it's great. I've got it tucked away somewhere. We will run it. Duralta, no, we always say this. Alan Kobayashi is a great friend. He's been a Portal 47 guest in the art department. He worked on Babylon 5. And by the way, RIP to John Iacovelli, who was the production designer on Babylon 5 and worked with Alan and others with Star Trek credentials too. But Alan was not the... years before Alan was involved. No, the Kobayashis... what am I going to say here? I think they kept that from of the 5 scripts that Nick Meyer, without credit, cobbled together because they were running out of time. I think the Kobayashis were his next door neighbor. What am I looking for? What am I looking for here? Hold on just a second. I think that's an actual fact that goes all the way back to the making of the Wrath of Khan here. Yeah. Yeah, Jack Swords. There you go. The Kobayashis were next door neighbors to the Swords. That's where he got the name. And it just, tripped over the tongue the same way it has forever. Thank you, Donnie. This is a new feature of Trekland Tuesdays Live now, the Power Ranger update, apparently. But thanks for doing that and being there. Oh, Dr. Anne Marie, hi. How could I ever not say hi to you, girl? Glad you're invading our space. Let's see. Everybody bopping in here now, folk. Come on. Oh, let's see. I love the fact that you guys. The score album for the final season of Picard tomorrow. Cool. Wait, what? What, yes? I missed this? I missed the TikTok setup for this? Although I might agree. Although TikTok is broadening the audience. I don't know how soon it'll be the grandma social that doomed Facebook, among other things. But I am seeing people who would never deal with TikTok before because they couldn't dance. They're using TikTok for other things. Well, you're not sure that Picard season 3 has a moral lessons or message at all. I see one. I see the beginnings of one. I'm not sure if that was intended or if it's just what may be a takeaway, but we'll see. We'll see how we'll see what the end result is. Sometimes it's hard to see things from, we need the 50,000 foot perspective, seeing the forest for the trees, as it were. Duralta says a message might be, don't judge people from their first appearance. Shaw. Yeah, well, we have the Horta for that, but okay. And don't be so reliant on technology. That may be a key to this. We will see. Oh, we're talking about the soundtrack. Woohoo. I would not doubt it. Speak of the tech heads and the ship nerds, we may have all kinds of what would that be? Trekko musical files? Well, Dominic, who the hell doesn't? I could watch that all day long. And when I was much younger, I had such a crush on Ali Sheedy from that show. But the message resonates, even if the computer technology has been. It's so cool to watch him setting up his phone modem. Yes. Okay, a rewatch of Disco, and you like 2 through 4 better than 1. Well, who wouldn't? No, season 1 is just, it could not help reflect its very confused birth. It's multiple sets of parents. Yes. Christoph, I think this may be where we're going. Yeah. Oh, the Nineveh was yes. Everybody else gets a gleaming starship, and I have the rattletrap alien shuttle that almost killed Picard and Wesley. Yeah, but hey, Jerry, I love Jerry Taylor. She was always desperate for names, and so how alien is Nemechek, especially when you change 2 letters. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Actual question. An actual question since before your son burned hot in space. Didn't Beverly know about Jean-Luc meeting the Jurati Borg Queen? Was it hush-hushed, or will we find out that Beverly's a founder? Yeah. Like Cisco's mother. I could see it. It was only a few months earlier. Beverly's been cut off and on the run. She's not in official circles. She's out there doing her thing with Jack, and wasn't paying attention to big time politics and news headlines. I can totally see her not. And the Jurati Queen was less than a year. That whole thing that didn't really take any time because it all happened in one day. The appearance and everything else was altered timelines and compressed timelines. I'm going to bet it was hush hushed, but it didn't have to be hush hushed for her not to hear about it. That's where I'm coming from. That's what I think probably Terry would say. Well, that's very Star Trek of you, Donnie. Disco may be just okay to you, but you're happy for those who love the show. And now they're mourning it going away. Rose, this is interesting. Star Trek is one big family being together, everyone, no matter what race, color, skin, or where they were coming from. Okay. Most of the time they happen to be living in the future than today, but yes, which is the inspiring thing about hang in there, you will make it with this will all go away funny. Hi, Mona. Was I surprised the announcement of Section 31 movie? Did you know or suspect? Well, they have said a Section 31 project for it's never gone away. It's always been whispered, but then Alex goes and talks about it whenever he could. And especially with the attention around Michelle Yeoh, they gave her a send-off in Discovery, the 2-parter through the Guardian of Forever of all things. Trekish. Talk about going back to a touchstone to give her a send-off. And then we were looking, this is interesting wording because I speculated here a few months ago about the time of the Oscars that someone made it clear to me that her only available time to shoot something not committed to already was this fall, which people were worrying about her salary demand or requirement. It's like, forget that. What about her time as far as being part of an ongoing series, even a short 10-episode current modern series? To shoot that much, that takes 6-9 months. And then between that and the money situation, I thought, well, maybe it's a handoff. A lot of people were saying, maybe quieter than others, but a lot of people were saying maybe it's a handoff where she's in the pilot or she's in the first few episodes, and then it's a handoff once they establish the other characters and leads. But they use her, they fulfill the promise to the fandom and audience, and their old press clippings, if not to Michelle Yeoh. And then she goes off and has her career, and maybe she's available for guest bits, however they leave it. We don't even know what era this is going to be set in yet. So about the announcement, I was surprised when they announced Starfleet Academy before Section 31, because they've kept both alive in the rumor mill, officially alive in the official rumor mill, the mentions. And so I was just surprised that it happened today, right now. And that they're coming out front and calling it a movie. But in the big scheme of things, I can easily see a series from the movie. And also, with all the uncertainty about financing and the status of streaming in general, it's a good way to hedge their bet. They fulfill all the initial promises, but maybe it becomes a series, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's pre-sold, or maybe it's a true pilot that has to deliver before someone greenlights a series. But thank you for asking. Okay, whatever it was you amened, Donnie, you're welcome. The only thing you don't get. Yeah, it's not your favorite, but the only me, disco killed my Star Trek. No, it didn't, obviously. Mm-hmm. Here you go. Aaron and the Hagemans would love to hear that Prodigy is your number one show and season 3 Picard as your honorable mention. See, I'm waiting for I think everybody, just falling all over themselves over Picard season 3 is understandable and all that. But eventually, as much as I've knocked down the nostalgia naysayers, it is a big part of it. And we're entitled to that. And they didn't. Nemesis was a horrible way. I mean, it wasn't as bad as the last episode of Next. It wasn't as bad as Enterprise's last episode, and it wasn't as bad. At least Enterprise had the 2-parter before the Terra Prime 2-parter, and at least the original series had movies. But yes, it's also funny how Patrick Stewart's vibe on the whole thing. He had to get through not having a reunion before he was ready to have a reunion. And make no sense, he's calling the shots on that. But that's what when you earn your clout, you earn your clout. The morality of season 3 may be ambiguous, but it's the best live action Trek since the 90s. Well, hey, JR. The names in fiction, but does the registry number honor the person or is code for anything? Occasionally it is. Like the Discovery is Halloween. But sometimes it is. But eventually, and especially once Mike Okuda got a hold of the graphics and the numbering minutia, they might try to have a class system where the class ships were all relative, and eventually over time we went from early days 3-digit ships to 4 by Kirk's era, and then 5, and now even 6 in the future. So each era they've let the numbers get bigger, and they've tried to keep things sequential. Now, the real ship nerds will talk about how that was obviously a bogus or an honorary number because it's out of sync. If we even get to the point where we know if it's a hero ship or we see a dedication plaque and they assign a year of its launch, and maybe we get the class ship, which supposedly should be the first one built, and its launch, and then we know that all the ones of a similar class were launched after that. But if we can zero in the time frames, then the numbers should roughly follow that. And occasionally there's a boner where a number doesn't match that at all, and it's not like a dash letter homage, but that occasionally happens. I think I would go on a couple of examples, but I'm not up on this, but they're out there. But for the most part, 95% of the time, they try to set a number that's just roughly about the evolution in normal timeline. 23rd, 24th, 25th century, 32nd century, and then have them progress along. But sometimes, yes, you should. You and everybody else who has it. And now you've got 6 weeks to go watch Prodigy, and they're only half hours. There's 20 of them, but they're half hours. It's only 10 hours. It's like binging a live action series. Yes. Yes, Kyle, I know you do. Did you miss something? Was the Borg formation, the fleet ships, that weird little design that looked like it's the stones up at Bronson Canyon left by druids or something, or witches? Thought that too. Terry actually talked about this in one of the interviews. Somebody asked him, and he said it was some, Yes, they were forming some. I thought it was a great way, instead of having just a jumble of ships. I mean, the poor DS9 visual effects folks were dealing with analog filming models, but how do you actually show a huge fleet of ships, and how do you show them having any kind of tactical, how do you make a football play out of it that makes sense without just having it be tons of ships? And they lose their definition then, and they lose any kind of logic. And I thought maybe that was a Starfleet. I don't know. Terry was acting like it was like the magnetic attraction, of iron filings or something that they just formed into those formations. But it made sense in a Borg way, is basically what Terry's cover was. In a practical way, it was how you could kind of organize that and make sense of it. So instead of just this jumble of ships, you could actually take that still and start counting ships and actually get a handle on how many there were, which I thought was the beauty of it. Then I had, as I said in Second Opinion, got from visual effects folks that it was basically about 380, give or take a few, that we saw in that scene finally. Yes. Well, Aaron could ask you to do a rewatch. I am demanding that you do a rewatch. And the first few episodes are fun, but you're going to think, oh, this is a simple. By the time you get to the end of the 20, by the time you hit the second 10, you're getting way complex ideas, and you're getting canon stuff thrown at you, and you're getting things that are going to have repercussions in the other shows. So no, it's not just a kid's show, and it's not just throwaway Star Trek gibberish. They're in a specific time in specific places. And there are some folks who wonder if the Borg, the Prodigy Borg episode, because Prodigy is like in the early mid 2280s, 2380s. Basically like 18, 20 years before current Picard. Real question, Dominic. Suggestions for a good old next-gen book of fiction to help with the odd, sad feeling that will happen to us after Thursday? Something to pamper us while we wait for Strange New Worlds. Sure. Believe me, there will be next-gen books. Of course, it depends on what happens with Star Trek Legacy or not, if and when. Duralta, 10 days, yes. And we did this in 2016. We did the two-city version. Is a bus ride across the Golden Gate Bridge included? And does the I Hate You Guys still on the bus? Well, I will tell you, Duralta, in 2016, we didn't plan. Yes, we went across the gate. That was the Golden Gate. That was a thing. But a couple of the folks on the tour, one of them had a little boom box, and he had I Hate You recorded, and he played it. He didn't have a big one, but he had a little one, and somebody else reached over and neck pinched him. It was very funny. And I have a video of it. Occasionally show that. Oh, sorry. We're going backwards here. What are you saying here, Melanie Jean? You wore Spock ears in high school. Class of 75, Eureka, California. You were a nerd geek before it was even heard of. All the jerks who bullied me can go to hell. I'm not interested in the 50th class reunion. Oh. But if you did want to go, you'd wear a Starfleet Admiral's uniform from the Picard era. And I wonder how many of them would have changed their tune, Melanie. I wonder how many of them would come out of the closet and say they were always with you, but they didn't have your nerve. Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott. Yes, Second Opinion was a little slow to get going, but then we kind of got focused in. And Lower Decks and Picard and some Prodigy, I think, are in there. Well, here's the thing, Duralta. The vaccinations fade. They have a really potency time of about 4 months, at least the ones so far. And I haven't had an update since, September, October, something like that. So, yes. Thank you, Kyle. Hashtag Second Opinion Saturdays. Yes, it's going to take off. As soon as we get Picard season 3 out of the way as a hashtag trender. Yes, absolutely, everybody. Parrot shouting, "I'm not dead, Needle." Yes, that's what I mean. It's in the mainstream. Somebody latched on. Well, Terry grabbed it and propagated it. Rose, I would say watch episode 10 of season 3 Picard. Yes, I would definitely go out on a limb and say watch it. Sean, I never trust a Christmas. I never will. Never forgive him for the death of my boy. Oh, this is funny. Are you saying that the real town of Eureka is way more stranger than the TV show town Eureka? Yeah. Well, William, I can assure you that the D set is all that time and money and effort was not going to be wasted. They now have a studio owned D set that they can use for museums and tour shows and future uses. Yeah. Hey, Sophia. Well, Portugal just showed up. Picard phenomenal. Wonder if Pike and the gang will continue to delight us too. Really so. I'm sure they will. Here's the thing, guys. Alex is a human being, and he's a Trek fan. He's a Next Generation era Trek fan, and he's out there working in the world, writing and producing, and then upping his game and running a company. And, is he going to be a Rick Berman or is he going to be a Dick Wolf? I think Rick's big mistake was trying to be so hands-on for so long and then eventually trying to be a writer-producer and not hang back, and the equivalent of handing off to Manny, say, for the last season of Enterprise. I think Alex here, notice what he's doing. He's gotten Mike McMahon into the mix. He's gotten the Hageman brothers and Aaron Walke into the mix. He's gotten Terry into the mix. After the initial setup, folks, he was the old man because of his movie ties, but the diversity of the TV smorgasbord, the buffet, you've got room for all these people. He can't pull a Rick Berman as in keeping a hand in actively. He does, but it's got to be a stepped up executive level. You've got to have hands-on showrunners and designers on these different shows. And then it becomes how successful you are in that role isn't what you're doing with yourself hands-on. It's who are the people you get to take it and run with it. And I'll just say, Henry Alonzo Myers is doing amazing things on Strange New Worlds, and he came out of nowhere. Terry has his Trek cred. Even Mike McMahon had his secret 8th season Next Gen Warp book to give you a clue what was going to happen there. And then, the Rick and Morty. What I'm saying is it's become almost as much about who he's bringing in. So people can still harangue on Alex Kurtzman like he's still secretly pulling every lever and pushing every button, controlling secretly every little nook and cranny nuance of every Star Trek episode and series. And in a funneled level upward, that's true, but not every single little decision. I mean, just look at the difference having Dave Blass as production designer has meant to any shows, much less the first. And it's not about people were untalented. It's just the extra sizzle. It's just the extra oomph. And if you want to chalk that up to being an old Star Trek fan, then go right ahead. I don't know about the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission weighing in on that, unless that's seen as a legit job requirement that's listable. I'm just saying it's, sometimes you're at the right spot at the right time in the right job. And in another situation, maybe you weren't the best one for another situation. Maybe somebody else wasn't the best to be in your place. We talk all the time about actors who were runners up to be cast. And now years later, we can imagine somebody else playing that. We can imagine. Here I go. Walter Matthau playing Spock. We can't imagine other, whatever. we have a hint here to see what Jean-Viet Bujold would have looked like as Janeway. We know. So yeah, it's not always about Alex Kurtzman. That's what the people are so clenched up about. That they don't understand how TV. That's been my mission, and not that I'm a TV mogul, but just to understand the basic thing of Dick Wolf had a huge franchise with his name at the end. Did he try to micromanage every show? No, he got the people in, and he sat back, did the initial creative spin, and then let other people take it and run it. And he laughs all the way to the bank with his healthy chunk of it, and has entertained people for years and years and years. No fresh. Well, JR, no fresh Trek is a phrase I've used in the last 2 or 3 hiati. Yeah. Not to be confused with no fresh hell, which was, Patrick's series. Sorry, we have no fresh Trek until next season. Well, that's it. Well, exactly. We will see. Again, I thought it would be at least a couple of years 2 months ago, but based on what we're seeing and doing now, we'll see. Depends a lot on what the plan is with Section 31. Starfleet Academy looks like it's a done deal with its tone intact, its people intact. It's been working and writing on, and we'll see what's going on. Kylie Rossiter, by the way, who was a co-writer on, who's been in the room on Picard this season, and co-wrote episode 9 with Sean Tretta. Kylie Rossiter is in the writer's room along with Tawny Newsome and others for Starfleet Academy. If you didn't see some of that, follow the socials, everybody. Follow the socials. Christoph. In 4 days, you've seen so many photos from the Picard D bridge, the chairs, it's already worn out. It's already worn out. Let's see. And thank you. Thank you. The B marker. Oh, Rose, I know you feel so burned, but I don't think everybody would be so high if they didn't think it was a payoff. Just watch it. What do you have to lose? Just watch it. I know you feel like you were burned by These Are the Voyages. Right. Well, this is what I say, JR. I think there might have been room for it. I just thought it might have been 2 or 3 years before it could go into production. If this is the limit now of Star Trek in the streaming world, and this is the budget limit, and there's already 2 slots filled up, claimed for. If one of them is not such a filled slot or is wobbly, if Section 31 is only out there as a 2-hour movie, and maybe they wait to see if the demand lights up for it, like a traditional old school pilot shown as a TV movie would be, like the $6 Million Man, or the miniseries for Ron's Battlestar Galactica, old school days. Miniseries came out of a big TV movie that no one saw coming, or maybe that was the plan and the hope. But if it didn't blow up, then oh well, nothing lost. But this is it. It's still going to make money, and it will probably make money if fans are happy. So it should be, a shared ride. It should be a parallel goal. Yes, I think we call that a win-win situation, not a win-win situation. That would be exactly the opposite. Well, this is the thing, Christoph. This is what I was doing basic math over. What may be a case of, though, is if one of those live action shows had been the original one, where the financial structure and the overhead had been a lot more than what they can do now. And if you can still have 3 live action shows, but as a whole, they're far cheaper. And don't forget, Picard was shot in LA, and that's apparently not going to happen again. So if all 3 are shot, if they cut the overhead of Discovery and they make a cheaper show than what was being spent for Picard, that would settle you and let you have 50 weeks of fresh Trek in a year. and you'd still be spending a lot less. And there's your streaming retrenchment budget. Well, again, Sean, I'll defend the idea because I didn't see. I know everybody thinks, "Oh, dark," and "Oh, it's not Star Trek," but this could have been the series that. I mean, if you look at Section 31, Section 31 is in a different place across the centuries, and we even have it in Enterprise. We even have it in the 22nd century, and we have it in the 23rd, and we have it in the 24th. Or we don't have it in the 23rd in Kirk's era. So we're wondering, was it totally underground then? And by DS9 times, it still is an enigma. But Discovery's first 2 years, it was out, and maybe the excesses of control pushed it underground to where it was all but gone. And that's what, I mean, Section 31 does not have to be a static placement over the centuries. And maybe the Section 31 show could be a reforming of the agency to where it wasn't a black ops, horrible, sadistic, off the books. We don't talk about it, dirty. We don't get our hands dirty with it. So it could have had legs that way, especially the way they were trying to reform Michelle Yeoh through all those contortions on Discovery to clean her up and not have her, be so Terran mindseted all the time, because that would be a recipe. She would be perfect for the Section 31 that we saw that we saw the year before the jump, the excesses of control, and Leland, and then getting back to with Sloane. Oh, I was going to talk about this, and it may be old hat by week. The poopy. I was going to bring this up. I've been watching some of the authorization for a writer's strike passed like 97%. Some insanely huge. Let me look at the screenshots that I kept here recently, if they're here. Yes. So the strike authorization vote, which doesn't mean a strike, it's just a poll of the members, the East and West Coast Writers Guilds together, the yes vote was 9,020. The no vote was 198. So that's almost 98% to 2%. 78% of the eligible writers voted. So you've got a voting turnout of 79%, and 97%, 98% of them say yes. So what that does is just show the producers that they're united and that they will go on strike if they don't get what they want. And it would be disastrous. We're just coming out of the shutdowns from COVID, the inflation wave after that, the delay. As the LA Times writer said, she did not want to see 4 months of late night talk show hosts doing shows from their living rooms again. So I polled a couple of our Star Trek head honchos, and I said, so are we close to a strike? And one of them said, nah. So it's like, because of this overwhelming turnout number, it looks that hopefully, we'll never say never. I'm just disappointed that the Fox Dominion lawsuit was settled. I want to see that dragged through court. But on a different note, with luck, and here's the thing: a lot of the series coming up the next year, it's in the can for the animateds as well, right? They would have hurt, and apparently I'm betting, as long as they've been working on it, I'm betting the Michelle Yeoh special movie event is all written out, and they're going to produce. They'll still keep tweaking on it, but it's supposed to go into production in the fall. When she can production ahead of time, but I'm still, a couple of people here and there are working on bits and pieces for it. So the effects of a writer's strike now in the next month, if it goes on for a month or two or three, may not show up In the network series, yeah, but it may not show up on streamings. They've been stockpiling. They've been stockpiling scripts. They've been rushing production to have that, and that's part of the defenses, the fortifications against a strike. Um, which thought sometimes you think that's going to strengthen your hand, but this is all about, as much as we struggle with 10 episode seasons, it's all about how that wrecked the old money situation. It's how writers made their money. It's how writers made a living. They could afford to live in. Not all of them, just like with actors, not every writer is a star writer. They're not all showrunner producers. They're just working journeyman writers, and the younger ones are trying to work their way up, and even the mid-level writers are just getting along. They don't have palatial mansions. They don't have you don't have tons of residuals until they get into the producer line, over the top, above the line. Some of them right above over the top, but that's a different story. So that's but that was good to hear. I we'll see. And then yeah, thank you, John Kahn, on text chat. As happened in 0708, the famous one that we have the picture that went 3 months because it was an adjustment to new media. Well, this is the next generation of new media as the seasons adjusted and everything's gone to streaming and away from lineal terrestrial 26, 22 episode seasons. It's totally messed up the income flow. Yeah. John says 10 episode seasons are great for actor and writer and crew burnout, preventing it, but they're murder on finances and on all the systems that were set up based on like points and pay into your pension and pay into the insurance fund and all that. And the writers' rooms are smaller, and there's not the, as we talked about, there's not the freelance work. When there's only 10 slots, you don't need to have a third of your shows be written by freelancers. There's not that work. So more and more people are coming in, not by pitching as a freelancer, but getting a job as a writer's assistant and working your way up the ladder. If there's no strike next week, we may have to do a deep dive. Well, we'll do a wrap up on Picard, obviously, and the fallout from all of that. So I'm thinking, of course, there might be, Christoph, there might be residual. Well, by fall, if they struck now, hopefully it wouldn't be going on for 6 months if they really do shoot in the fall. But if the directors and actors go out in sympathy strikes, because all the contracts are the same time. And if remember in the 0708, we had a lot of sympathy actors and directors walking the picket lines, including the Star Trek Day at Paramount, which wasn't that Paramount was especially bad. It was a big Vogue thing to have that Ron Moore started, I think, with Sci-Fi or Universal. And the granddaddy of them all had so many writers involved that a Star Trek theme strike made sense. Oh, Christoph. Aren't you TTL lifers? Yeah, you've been here. It feels like you've been here your whole life. There you go. Narda is usually with us from the outback in Australia, but I haven't seen Narda today. I hope her husband's having medical procedures and surgery. I don't know where that is in the timeline, but we will see. This is a good question, Sean. How can new people come into Trek? Even trying to explain the most basic details to a non-fan is so difficult trying to have a conversation. Well, point them to Prodigy. And if they instinctively rebel against, I'm not going to watch a kid's show, maybe Lower Decks can be so hypnotically funny that you start soaking up Star Trek without realizing it, that it's so manic. I don't know. I'm thinking that the last 3 new entries, I'm thinking that even Strange New Worlds start you out on Earth in a snowstorm making pancakes with your lover in your bed. I mean, it starts off very soft core, not exactly hardcore. Well, They start off with the reveal that you think you're making alien contact, and then we find out it's aliens making the alien contact. That's kind of a nice reveal, but that's almost like Twilight Zone vibes or X-Files vibes. So you've got that softcore opening teaser, and then the first actual Trek you see is very terrestrial, old school, retro living. So that's kind of seducing you into the charm of the whole thing, which I'm sure are very intentional steps. I don't know, but I hear you. That's an issue. Maybe other people have ideas on that. Mm-mm-mm. I did this topic actually. I did this topic really early in Tuesdays Live. Like, how do you somewhere way back in the double digit episodes in 2017, 2018? Because I tried to do a movement for a while. Disco was my first Trek dance. There's still a web page up, and I may do that. I'm really fascinated to see what that means for now the other end of the other extreme, from the chaos and the disassociation of discovery, new people coming to Trek through that. Now, new people coming to Picard with the old family feel. Are they feeling out because it's such a old leather chairs approach to Trek, and so many fans are just awing and falling into it that a new person, like, how do they see it? How do you see Picard season 3 through their eyes? I'd love to know that. I said that a few weeks ago. But this is a topic that's out there. How do you bring in new fans of whatever stripe or flavor? How do you bring them in with 55 years of and 4 centuries of canon out there? 4 centuries of background. 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 32nd centuries now. Good question. Good question. Well, there's that. You could be chronological and just start with Enterprise. Yes. Good question, Sophia. Do you watch Trek in English? I know the Germans will have answers for that. Mm-hmm. Okay, old topic back before. You do hope for future. Well, if Star Trek is ever on over-the-air network television, terrestrial broadcast networks, 1 hour with commercials, if that's still a thing. Number one, yeah, are over-the-air broadcast networks still a thing? You know, Data said they would all die out by what was that? 2025? What was the year? First of all, they have to survive. And if they survive, then hell yes, because that would be a signal, that would be a barometer that Trek is its presence in the mainstream has expanded, 3 or 4 times greater than it is right now. And right now, it's 3 or 4 times greater than it was in 2016 at the 50th. That was so sad, trying to celebrate your 50th anniversary for nobody, but they made a big splash. And this is true. At least Nickelodeon. See, that's going to be not a ticking time bomb. That's going to be a ticking time bomb for the good. The long-term effect of having Prodigy on Nickelodeon, where more people can see it, even in slow motion, even just trickling down. Oops, that was a bad phrase. Even just gradually soaking up the youth audience. Yeah. Mission Impossible without Nemo. Where did that come from, Sean? I know, he was Paris. Not Thomas Eugene Paris, but Paris, the master of disguise. Deralda. Would Georgiou be like Ilya or Napoleon? I'm going to pass on that one. Well, now they think it's all space stuff with lasers and spaceships. Well, a chunk of Star Trek fandom does think that. No, I think that would be a relief. There's a big chunk of the audience that probably do I dare generalize this much? The feminine side, the shipper side that probably thinks that, and they would be shocked to get in and see what's going on. That's why sometimes the casting of these characters the casting sometimes, the names associated is so key in bringing new faces in, new fans in. You don't remember the titles of the episodes, much less the order? Mona, how can you call yourself a fan? I'm kidding. I'm kidding, of course. This is all. It's all a holodeck program on the Voyager, and Seven just needs help with a moral dilemma. Yes. Right. This season or the whole damn series? Okay, well, we can throw out everything we know about the post-Romulan supernova then. Can we go back to calling? We'd go back to calling it the Hobus Shockwave Subspace Supernova. What was the namesake of the star drive section in the Enterprise? You mean the USS Syracuse? Well, it's either the city in the U.S. or the ancient city in what, Greece? One of the two. It was mentioned. You're going to go back to this. I almost put this into second opinion, but it was too in the weeds. It goes back to, it was mentioned as a ship on one of the personnel files of one of the folks who helped launch the Enterprise. That was in a throwback, all the flashback scenes in Eye of the Beholder. The Daniel Kwan, I'm committing suicide by jumping through a plasma stream, and we got to see the inside of a nacelle control room and the inside of a nacelle episode. And Troy was so big and trying to counsel her way through that and through the mystery. And one of the random Okudagram love porn shows had all those extras with their ID files that had to be sorted through. It's the show when Ensign Wallace got a first name Darian, my friend Guy Vardaman, who'd been an extra forever. So that's the first time we had it mentioned, and they went back and pulled that out. Okay, I told you weeds. I told you that would be weeds. What would be horrible? Oh, the holodeck thing. Yeah, and a young Riker shows up to help her. The Shaw premiere was the future's OK Boomer. Good point, Linda. Well, yeah, you couldn't help but draw the parallels. But now they each went vastly different paths. But you definitely had Cisco. Oh, that first episode was totally a slow burn take on that. It was revisiting that vibe. But if there are any survivors from Wolf 359 floating around out there, wouldn't you think a lot of them deep down would think the same thing? How did they bring back Duquesne and then do nothing with him? What was that all about? Sorry, Sean, I'm not familiar there. Oh, okay. Thank you, Sean. Terry is doing an Ask Me Anything on Reddit on Friday. You may wish to tune in. Well, that'll be after. On Friday, not Saturday. Maybe it's later on Friday to let most of the Europeans see the episode, I would hope. Yeah. The V movies count as made for TV. See, what also happens is when they do it as a movie and it's sold that way, they can build sets and costumes and props and visual effects models. They can amortize that on even a TV movie budget and have all that built up, and then they don't have to start it from scratch for the time and the investment. Yeah, Rich Man Poor Man was just a mini series and then a book too. And I think I mentioned this. Moo? Are you new to us, Moo? If not, then if you are, then welcome. Glad you're here. And if not, if you're secretly somebody else, we know. It's amazing what can be done for $8 million. Can I find out? in terms of near movie quality. Never figured out why disco was so expense-minded, never did anything good with the money. Well, a lot of disco is like the motion picture. It was a lot of people flailing around to get something done and built, and then things change. But those costs have to be written up to something. And people are hired with contracts in the beginning. Right. A vote for the new Lost in Space. I watched the first one and I got tired of the weekly cliffhangers, and I went, oh, that's right, this is what the original was. But it was funny then, you didn't care. This one is a really serious ongoing story, and I just got tired of people always being in jeopardy every week, and somebody saves them. Maybe I should give it a second shot. Melanie. Mona, who remembers Centennial? Yes, the miniseries from the 70s, all during the bicentennial hoo-ha. 12 episodes, and was a great 12 episodes miniseries. Yes. The miniseries, especially if they were hours, sometimes they were 2 hours an episode, but a lot of them were, see, you had the James Michener name attached to it. And it was in depth. You didn't have to take a huge novel and condense it down to nothingness. That's an impossible task. But that's where we were. That's kind of like the model basically for the mini series that we have, that was responding to the European model. But at the same time, you could have big scope and do things you could never do as just a weekly series even. Thank you for the update, Christoph. The Center Seat DVD release is coming. There you go. Melanie. Handmaid's Tale is gripping but depressing. Yes. Days of Our Lives on Peacock. That's what you're doing for your hiatus. Yep. Oh, everybody's doing their hiatus. But yeah. Hey, we should save this for a topic some week. An Enterprise binge watch. Very good. The message of Picard is family and do anything to protect them. Reinforced 2 and 3 and 4 times over. Yes. Hey, Carl, good to see you. You don't use TikTok because you're over 20. There you go. Jonathan is 70 and becoming a TikTok star. Is it Jonathan doing the TikToks, or is it other people doing Jonathan's bits about it? We talk about that a little bit on Trek Files. Let's see. Okay, I'm glad you all are sharing your hiatus plans. Well, Melanie, Girardi is not the new Borg Queen. She is a construct from another dimension for that anomaly. That was a very limited. They said that this is not reflective of the entire collective. Obviously it's a branch. It's a divided, unique, disconnected branch. And she's a mind meld, and they're protecting against that vortex, whatever the hell that was, which is still out there somewhere. I see what you're saying. You wish they'd use the Ticonderoga as an Easter egg for the set tour. Yeah. Episode 10 will reveal that either season 2 never happened, or Girardi's Borg, the Borgrati, will come back and help save the day. The Girardi Borg was in another timeline from its origins. Yeah. Well, you're welcome, Christoph, because I saw that, and I found a little bit more about that ship, but it's not my place to say anything. For once, I'm going to just let it lie. I will put the 2 options out there and wait for the powers that be to tell us what it really is. But you're welcome. You're welcome. There's the Pulaski Skyway, early day freeway in New York City. If you listen to Warren, I remember it because War of the Worlds, the radio version, Orson Welles' radio War of the Worlds, that a lot of people heard and believed it was really Martians attacking. they talk about some of the Martian machines straddling the Pulaski Skyway. So, and that was named for the general, not for Dr. Kate Pulaski in 1938. Is Girardi Queen an alt Girardi situation? Mm-hmm. We know the only Queen is Grudge. Well, I've seen some people pushing back that Spot is back in the Queen's chair of Queen Cats. Hey, Mona. So you're in the minority. No, you want a series instead of a movie for Section 31. Screaming for a while now. The handoff would be better in my mind. So maybe the movie. Yeah, now, if for some reason the 2-hour movie isn't pleasing through no fault of, through no fault of her being the star, if it's a production thing, then okay. If the tone just doesn't quite gel, maybe so. Or maybe it's done fully intending to do a series, but they're so intimidated by getting it right that they want to get something out there safe and then respond to that and tweak it to make tweaks going into a series. They want to have a breathing. I can see all kinds of scenarios playing out here. And maybe sooner than later, maybe we'll hear exactly what's going on. But I can see all these things in play. I can see a lot of, bet hedging. The powers that be are keeping secrets. When is that? Oh, do you mean Federation or do you mean Paramount Plus? We don't know officially yet. I hear all kinds of people talking about that. It would seem a waste to spend camera time with not just Tilly, but those cadets that got so much screen time and development at the end of Discovery, including a final scene with Admiral Vance for her while they were all waiting. It was COVID dominated for shooting, but two-person scenes. But we will see. Oh, Rose, I have no idea. I'm so close to watching it, I'm not even going to speculate. But we do know that Terry keeps saying it's a perfect setup. It's a resting point. Things come to a conclusion for now, but with obvious threads to take and follow on. The story is ended. And I'm betting that the galaxy is saved. Do we know? You guys, do we know what ship the NCC 666 is? I don't know. Google it. But don't Google it 3 times in a row. Unless you say Beetlejuice. Not the star, but you could say Beetlejuice is the star. I don't know. Yeah. Queen Agnes might come to the rescue. I still like Borgrati. It works better than Gerborg. Very sorry, Christoph. Still no animated Star Trek on Paramount Plus. Let's see. Okay, just calm down, Christoph. Just calm down. Okay. Yeah, Strange New Worlds is June 15th, 16th, I believe. Prodigy, Lower Decks in the summer, and Prodigy after that. Lower Decks is usually started up around the time of Vegas, like early mid-August, and they've had that slot for forever. Question, JR, is Legacy something the fans made up or official Star Trek people's? This would be interesting to go back and track. Terry jumped on it very quickly for a campaign, but every breath is, this is not official, this is not greenlit, this is my wish. Whether it was a fan did that and he leaped on it immediately, or I had to go back and we'll get to the bottom of this. Maybe we can do an internet, a Twitter tracker and see. But whether it was called this or not, he's had it in his head since day one of where this could. You always think that. You're always thinking ahead. especially if it's a Star Trek and you're a Star Trek fan that got given the keys for a while. Mike, what are the odds that Commodore LaForge's dynamic ship will buzz the corona of Proxima, go back in time to the 2370s, and treat Picard to a contraceptive hypo? He's not a doctor. Can he do that? Then spend the rest of the hour on hugs. I have not calculated them, sir. to steal a classic Spock line. The only question is how many megatons. Oh, love the punk in his boombox, and he has a crass sticker on it. Great British political punk band. Oh, there you go. Yes. Was Alice Krieger a last-minute fill-in for Annie Wershing voiceover? I'm not sure about that. It could have been something as simple as I'm trying to put the timing of the post into the progression of her disease. That's a timing thing. You would think, I don't know. It could have been something as simple as Annie didn't want to do a voiceover for, she only has those few lines. Now, if we go and have a big Borg Queen scene, that may be a good question for the AMA. I just hope Terry is doing so much publicity. I just hope there's something. I know there will be. Never underestimate the Trekland Dr. Trek way of interviewing folks and interviewing, but also it's not just for happy dappy one-liners. I do it for the record. I do it for history. I have my questions. I have my questions on options. And there's always the road not taken that you're not aware of. But it may have been a case of Annie Wershing didn't want to do just a one-off voiceover scene. Or it could be that she was already feeling the effects. Some masks. Well, remember when this was filmed? This was filmed months ago. It's only been, what is this, March? I mean, we were still masking at cons last summer. You were watching Roots, and 2 of the 4 directors had directed TOS episodes. There you go, Dominic. Yep. There you go, Linda. See? You have Pulaski Day in Chicago. And it's not for Kate. Sorry to inform people. This could have been a thing, although their voices, they're distinctive. Yeah. Hey, Christian. Nice that you could join in and get in with us. Looking forward to Picard finale and the just announced Section 31 movie. Well, who isn't? I have to go catch Ira's interview on Shuttlepod. Yes, he is amazing. D&D. Don't dislike Kurtz, to be honest. Yeah. Well, eventually he's got to keep, if he just gets to a point of, Rick Berman was so hated and despised by such a huge bunch of fans by the end. Thank you, Glenn. We are hopefully getting to the end of the chat there. Picard needs Laris. Okay. What do I think about the Enterprise F? I think it's nice. It's fine. It's there. Wait, did I say Walter Matthau is Spock? That's not what I meant. Did I say that? You know what I meant. Yeah, the asymmetrical Borg ships. Yes. Okay. Rose, I don't know how you could live with yourself if you watch all these episodes and don't watch the finale. How do you even do that? Don't let fear take over your life. Um, Hi, Linda. Hey, good to see you. Is this your first time with us in a while? Maybe. Do actors actually memorize every line, even those or are there cheat cards? No, it's part of the craft. They do. You'll hear a lot about this kind of thing with soap operas because, well, back in the old days when they were live and they were grinding out, and some of the soap operas were like an hour long. Now they would have big casts, and hopefully, they people would have different bits, but um, and sometimes they get help if they had big change pages and they didn't have time to really memorize it. Some actors are a fast memory, some take a little bit longer. But no, you memorize because you want to be able to. Memorizing lines is just the first part of an actor's craft because you have to be familiar with them enough to be able to experiment with them and experiment with another actor and have a dynamic going. And you're always, a director will give you different intentions and you'll do little scenes and etudes and just trying to bring something fresh. So no, memorizing the lines is the first thing. Ideally, if you're doing a play, if you're doing a movie that's got a long time, sometimes TV is sped up, but the way they're shooting these cinematic TVs, they're taking 10, 11, 12 days to shoot, or they're taking 3 weeks to shoot 2 hours in blocks like they do on Picard. So they do. They do. Now, if the technobabble is horrendous, or especially if they've had recent, like that morning they change lines, they might do something like that. But it's part of the pride of being an actor, and some are better at than others, obviously. But that's part of the craft. That's what they get paid for. But just to know that the line memorizing is just the first step. Okay. There you go. Christoph just said what I said. Okay, into the chat as we know it. And for some like Will Wheaton, technobabble is their first thing anyway. Oh, interesting. Okay, I hope it's good. Let's see. Yeah, all you main viewer folks later. Yeah. I know. I had the same feeling, Doral, to have one of the control agents like Leland. Sorry about that, Chief. %79 turnout and 98% pro strike. Wow. Yeah. The whole infrastructure of how everybody gets paid, you basically have to have at least 2 jobs now, which means you're having to network and write. I mean, it's, to take up both halves of the year that you're not working on the one show with such a short season. So I don't know, the burnout you're saving working on one show, you're burning out running around trying to network fast enough to get on a second show. And especially a show where there's no synergy with the other one. Exactly, JR. Yeah, they make less with residuals for streaming in streaming versus network, right? Because that was always looked at as a less than. Back in the day, syndication was less than network. This next generation rates were less than network shows in 1987 because it was syndication. It was a cheaper form. And and then the internet shows, the internet TV was going to be even cheaper than filmed syndication. So that old attitude has gone out the window because now it's the mainstay. There are so many more 100 hours of TV streaming than that's prestige. And what is winning the Emmys? We laugh about how no one knows any of these award shows, or the vast majority of American audiences have no idea what these shows are that are nominated for Emmys in the US, because they're all streaming. Abbott Elementary made history because it was finally an Emmy winner that was on terrestrial broadcast TV on ABC. Yeah. Awesome. Well, never give up your dream. Do the work. Mm-hmm. This is a function of the new era, Scott. Totally, exactly. Yeah. Same thing with maybe the directors as well. James, you're bopping in, you're in my stream, and you're throwing out controversial things like this. Well, for people who are seduced by glitz and gloss and high production, and I'm not denigrating it, but for people who that's their expectation level, maybe, could be. I need to watch these again. Janet and I were going to have a sit down to watch the Kelvin movies again in a fresh light. Considering the fact that they were 09, 13, and they were over a 7-year period, they weren't exactly back-to-back episodes. Could be viable. Christoph, for decades you were forced to watch it in German, but then the DVD came to switch it. I know tons of fans overseas. They learn their English through watching American TV and British TV. But so many Trek fans overseas, especially in Europe, they learn their English by watching. I've heard that from Greek fans, from Czech fans, from Hungarian, Romanian fans I managed to meet at the Greek cons and the Czech cons. In Austria, not so much the French con I was at, because they were French. They're demanding that Jean-Luc be dubbed into French in the whole series that way, apparently. Well, this is a function, JR. Yeah, if it's going to be on commercial network, it would have to be trimmed to the old 48 plus, or is it even less? Isn't it down to like 43 now? 42, 43? And Commander Koenig was Roland Hands. Exactly. Yeah. Aha. Mr. Kerwin, you have an ally here. A lot of current fans were brought in by the. Oh, I've the two best things about the Kelvin movies: the casting, and the fact that they kept Trek alive for that generation to come in to find something new and splashy and fresh, and it impressed the mainstream reviewers and the Hollywood, bookkeepers. Star Trek was not a dead franchise thanks to the Kelvin movies in the eyes of the great mundania who control a lot of the pocketbooks and a lot of the and the media too, the opinion makers as well as the bookmakers. I totally am happy with the Kelvin movies and the role they played, because apparently we were just destined for 10, 12 years there of treading water until we got Prime Trek on episodic adventure making back. All right. Now, was the Syracuse dismantled to provide a hull for an Enterprise? For the new Enterprise? Yes, that's right. I could see Patton saying it. Syracuse. Sorry, James. I let my European geography slip up on me. Thank you. Sicily. I remember it being a factor in the Sicilian campaign between Monty and Patton. Sometimes on the fly. Well, there is this. It's on my list. That's true. Frank Syracuse is in the producing pool. That would be funny. Okay. Yeah, Sophia. Yeah, they had, yes, McCoy's nickname was Pill in German, not, yeah. Thank you, Christoph. His AMA will be 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. UK, 7 p.m. Europe, manageable. I got you. I was just hoping they were that they were dealing with it. Of course. Of course, Disco is a lot like TMP. I meant on the startup function of it and all the earlier iterations of things going into the budget, even though it didn't show up on screen, or it did pointlessly. Well, it was the Disco design looking like an enterprise design for the Planet of the Titans version that didn't get produced at all. Yeah. We have an active chat. All these people jumping in, all these strangers jumping in at the end here. Now, what, Rose? What? Normally, Picard is on at midnight UK time, right? But you think it's going to be on Friday morning at 8 a.m.? You mean delayed 8 hours? Really? Okay. Well, William, maybe somebody can help you. A robot owl. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? No, that was a very live puppet owl. X. Okay, I think we are headed out here. Thank you guys. Glad to do what we can. Yes. Thank you, Christoph, for that. Like and subscribe and spread the word, as I always say. Indeed. And you're very welcome, Duralta. But don't say Candyman. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for settling this, Christoph, because the curious and the satanic do want to know. Several in fan fiction. I bet there are. Now, what? You would love if the Titan nickname to be Annie. It fits the 5-letter scheme of other ships, and it would be rather lovely. You mean the T-shirt thing? Oh, okay. I don't know how we bridge that gap, but plenty of letters left in the Picard alphabet. Yeah. Hey, Steven, how's things over in Tech's world? You'd be shocked if anyone working on Picard claims that it isn't named after the Doctor. Okay. I'm gonna let that come up at Terry's AMA. Maybe we'll see. Yeah, they did have strange. Again, it was like iron filings around a line of a pole of magnetivity. Oh my goodness. Frazi, years ago, I awarded you with the Captains. You mean the DVD? We were doing trivia somewhere and you won it? Okay. Cool. Glad to see you again. Glad you could make it to Tuesdays here. Sorry. Here you go. Awarded you with a poster called The Captains. Just wanted to say thank you, Larry. You're very welcome. Oh, a promotional poster for the Captains DVD. There you go. You're very welcome. Hope you hang around and check out everything in Trekland now. There's a lot going on here. Okay. Wow. Terry is hosting the American Music Awards. Yes. Why, yes, he is. You are very welcome, Dave. We'll see you next week, everybody. Well, I'll say this, but what now? Stop being so much fun to watch. I have to go pay for my taxes. Oh, no. Sorry, May. Is that a good thing or bad thing? I kept you from that. Okay. You take that one and run with it. We're really getting it into the chat. I know we are. Right. Well, the pill used to be that before 1964, right. Melanie, the Kelvin timeline is not prime canon universe. It's the canon for its own universe, which is why they can do anything they want to do. It's fine with me. It's not prime. It's its own universe. And it should be internally consistent. But there's only 6 hours of it. So how do we know? If there was a series and it got more complex, we would see. No, I get this. These are getting confused. But the Kelvin timeline, they can do whatever they want to do. If somehow they manage to reflect back on this without crossing back and forth, that's fine. But it's not prime, so what do I care? I think we really are at the end of the chat, gang. So having said that, thanks everybody for joining us today again. And again, I want to thank all of our Patreon folk there for helping us join in and helping do this. And if you want to join in and throw a little bit of coinage at it just to help the streaming into Trekland, I really appreciate it. That's not the right sign, dummy. There we go. It's only the $5 and $10. Patreon.com/Trekland Live. And I know there are other crowdfunding platforms out there. I haven't looked at them. So I'm still on good old Patreon. Want you to make sure you hear this week's Trek Files. If you've never heard of Trek Files before, this is a unique one. It took a turn right out of the gate that I wasn't expecting, and you can kind of hear it in my voice. But we have the great Jonathan Frakes with us. Really sit down, and I wonder what we're going to talk about his acting side. Now, we did his directing side. He was in the season 10 premiere with us. Was our guest. He's back here, the 5th episode of season 10 already. You're going to catch it wherever you catch your podcasts, or you can get it at podcast.roddenberry.com. The Trek Files is our Facebook home, our hub, and that's where all the documents are, and you want to get them. It's audition sides for Riker from 1987. We start there and have a wonderful conversation, but it does start very cute, and I come full circle to a very, very personal moment with Jonathan that I surprised him over, that we got a little tickled over, okay? And once again, if you're thinking about coming to the West Coast this summer, anytime you're here, whatever you may have thought, misunderstood, whatever, I will do a Trekland Treks with you. We'll do some location site touring, 4 in a day with a lunch. You set the day and time. I'll work it out with you. We'll work out the sites. You can choose from over 40. You're 4. We'll work it together, okay? TreklandTreks.com, your real life away mission when you're in LA. What else can I say? We've got the con season coming up. We've got hiatus coming up. We'll survive it together. There's lots of exciting, interesting things going on, much less the Michelle Yeoh Section 31 movie and more. Meanwhile, just catch me, Larry Nemechek, on Twitter, at Larry Nemechek. Larry Nemechek's Trekland. Please, if you're on YouTube right now, like and subscribe. And Facebook, yeah. Instagram, please do. We have a lot of fun stuff on Instagram. Check it out now. I've got a short up that is a slow motion pan. I took his video of Dave Blass's close up on the graphic wall of all those ships, all the cool namesakes and stories behind it, and a lot of solar system moons. Why don't we have any alien system moons? Oh, that Federation chauvinism, that human chauvinism in Federation. Portal47.net. If you want to join us in the portal, it's like a mini-con all year long. Dave Blass is our guest this month, and you won't see it anywhere but if you're a member on Portal 47. So I'd love to have you join us. Big year coming up. Thanks so much for being here every Tuesday, everybody, and jumping in the chat. And a lot of folks getting in sooner and later this week. So I'll get out of the way of the 7th rule bunch coming up. I have things to do, Z12. I have places to go. Everybody, please, 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 just take care of yourself. Stay healthy. Do all the things, okay? Stay woke. Check your sources. And, yeah. Trek well, everybody.